Hi, my name is Darrin Evans. I'm the director of the North Carolina's Virtual Learning Community's Professional Development Center. And my job is to travel around the state, talk about accessibility, course design, and pedagogy. So I'm here at Blue Ridge today to talk to you about AI and accessibility, the pros and the cons. And I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy that you're going to spend some time with me today. So again, the title of this presentation is Using AI for Accessibility, the Pros and the Cons. And our agenda today is threefold. I want to sort of explain to you what AI is, sort of demystify what we mean by artificial intelligence, and how that term is used and maybe misused a little bit. I want to talk to you about the risks and the benefits of using AI for accessibility. And then I want to talk about ways and tools we can use that are AI-based that increase access for all learners, not just those with disabilities. So we're going to start with this quote by the science fiction author, Arthur C. Clarke, who says, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And that's more a way of how we view technology than the actual technology. And as I said today, we're going to sort of demystify what AI is and what it does. There are two types of AI. There's the artificial intelligence that you use every day, and that just is software that simulates sort of thinking. And the real AI we're going to talk about today is called generative AI. So that's ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot, where you're probably used to this. You type in a prompt, it's a chat bot, and it prints something out for you, or it posts words for you. So those are the two types of AI we're going to talk about. What we call garden variety artificial intelligence, which you use every day, and then what we call generative AI, which generates a response from a prompt that you give it. So we're going to talk about how AI works. I had to show you this picture of this AI toothbrush, right? AI cannot think, see, or understand, right? And the term itself, artificial intelligence, is a little bit misleading because software doesn't learn, right? We're talking about what we call large language models. And what that does is it's a calculator for words. It lets you associate a term with certain words. So I may say the term taco, and it may associate words like Mexico, tortillas, al pastor, Tuesday. Those are words that it will associate with that term. And that's what we mean by generative AI. It's a calculator for words. It's almost like a giant thesaurus in one sense. If it sees this term, it associates these words with this term, and then it just spits those words back out to you in a chatbot format. Okay, so workers feed in some sort of sample text, which helps train the machine learning. And we'll talk a little bit about image generators, right? So large numbers of workers, they just label databases, okay? So this image you're seeing, the label will say this image contains an image of an orange, okay? It has no way to distinguish context. What kind of orange is this? Is this a blood orange? Is it a Valencia orange? It has no way to sort of do that. So those image generators can only tell you that this image does, in fact, contain an orange, but it can't tell you what kind of orange is in that image. And then let's talk about a little bit about some image generator limits. The AI in Word suggests for this image that you're looking at, this is the alt text that it suggests. A statue of a person with wings on top of a pillar with a city in the background. It in no way tells you that this is the El Angel statue, that this is downtown Mexico City. It has no way of distinguishing that. It says, again, a statue of a person with wings on top of a pillar with a city in the background. So the AI is good at describing what's in the image. It has zero context of what that image is and what's happening in that image. Now, you use AI almost every day, right? The Microsoft Word Accessibility Checker is AI that improves your documents. The GPS in your phone or car uses AI to calculate the best routes for you. On the drive here, I had to take a slight detour, and the GPS used that artificial intelligence to map out that detour for me. Okay, it wasn't generative, it didn't generate a response to me, it just gave me an alternate route. And now we're going to talk about what we call the complaints. It's one of my favorite books, it's called The Complaints. But anyway, I just use that image. AI may and does make critical mistakes. I'm going to show you about a very famous case of AI making a critical mistakes. It's programmed by humans, so it's going to have human biases. And just read up on, again, I've said this before, read up on how these companies train this AI. It's very, almost disturbing, kind of dystopian a little bit. Now, having said all that, I'm going to try to give you a balanced view. I do use AI for some aspects of accessibility, but I use it in a very, very narrow focus. And we'll talk a little bit about that soon. Now, this was a book I read back in college in the 90s, which I can't believe that was 20-some years ago, but anyway. It's called Silicon Snake Oil by a guy named Clifford Stoll, who's a famous hacker at the time. And he really just bashes the internet in the whole book. But what's great about the book, I think it's still in print, you can probably pick it up from Amazon, I'd encourage you to read it, is he predicted exactly where we are. Like exactly where we are with the internet and exactly what happened. I mean, it's extraordinary almost. So technology criticism isn't new. It's like a calculator for words. So anytime it saw a woman's name, it would throw the application out, whether she was qualified or not, right? Because since most software engineers typically have been men, it would throw all those women out. And the machine learning, it actually taught itself to discriminate against women even better. So whenever it saw a woman's college, it would automatically throw that name out. It would throw that resume completely out, right? And there were women from like Stanford who were very, very qualified who never got even a shot. So Amazon, and the article will walk you through it, how that happened, what happened there. And Sarah's got a copy of this PowerPoint, so you don't have to write that down. I'm sure she'll share that with you. But it's very fascinating on how that happened. So maybe the nightmare scenario is not robots killing us. Maybe it's those biases becoming permanent. Maybe that's the real nightmare scenario. But that's an interesting case, and depending on how this AI is trained, right, they're hoovering up all your data from YouTube, from Zoom, and they're creating these language models. Now, having said that, I do use AI, right? There are certain use cases for it, but I only use it for about 3 different reasons, essentially. And we'll get into that. AI is just a tool, right? I got a hammer at my house. My neighbor, I could bash his head in with that hammer, or I could build a deck with it. The hammer itself is just a tool. That's all it is, right? It's how I kind of implement it and use it. So it's up to me to not bash my neighbor's head in with that hammer. He's a nice guy. I just use him as an example. I'd never bash his head in. I'd use my hands. But anyway, that's a different subject. So there are some benefits for AI. Remember, since it's that large language model, these words are associated with these words. It can improve accessibility, particularly when it comes to captioning, when it comes to anything with language. They're really, really good with those things. Would I use AI to hire people? No. Would I use it to evaluate people's job performance? No. Would I use AI for something critical? Probably not. No, it's not there yet. Right? It can serve as a better internet search engine, and it can help you brainstorm things, right? By associating certain words with certain other terms. It helps you maybe think about something or look at it a slightly different way. Now, here's my rant. Whenever I'm doing national presentations, I do national presentations all the time. I always get the same question when I'm done. If I'm doing something on Word, they say, how come you didn't say anything about the accessibility checker? I'm like, because you're the checker. You're a person, you're the checker, right? There's a lot of things that the accessibility checker is gonna miss just because, again, it can't make nuanced decisions, right? So I'd like you to use accessibility checkers. They are great tools if you use them properly, okay? Use them to show you what is not accessible, not necessarily what is. Now here's my use case for them. I use AI all the time for captions and transcripts, right? I use it all the time for that because it's great at that. Now, I have a strong Southern accent, so it doesn't get my words really that straight, right? Somebody like Sarah who's got that sort of Midwestern accent, I could probably record something with her and the AI would get hers probably 100%, where me it'd only do maybe 50 or 60. Now I said I wanted to have a conversation with you. Do y'all use AI and what for? So it's really just to get you started and to kind of spur your mind rather than, which is, I think is probably the appropriate way. So what I wanted to do here really was to show you sort of a balanced view of what AI is, some of the problems that you can see with it. The fact that to call it artificial intelligence is really, that's just a misnomer. It's a calculator for words. Associate these words with this term. Or this term, these words should be associated with it. If somebody asks for a recipe, those recipes show people how to cook stuff. So when they ask for a taco recipe, it just combines those words. Is really kind of all it does. As Joe was saying, it doesn't write lesson plans for her, right? That she can actually go out and use. And it doesn't matter how good you are at prompting, it's because machines don't do that. Right? People aren't statistics, right? People aren't numbers. They're people, right? They're annoying people sometimes, and sometimes they're not annoying people. Now, I like this one that I use quite a bit. It's not available in America yet, but a friend in the UK uses it, and I get my VPN and use that with them. So it takes, again, this is what AI is. AI is very, very good at anything involving language. And American Sign Language is, in fact, a language. So it takes websites and it converts that to American Sign Language, or British Sign Language in that case, because I'm looking at it from the UK. They've got a product now that does American Sign Language. It just hasn't been released yet. And it does a really, really good job with that. So if you have a deaf student who needs to interact with the website. I think Hand Talk will be here, what are we now? We're April 17th. I think in June they're going to release it, June or July. But it works really, really well. It works really, really well at, there's an animated character that will sign even video, if it has video, and it's not captioned, it'll sign the video. It does sort of video, audio sort of descriptions. So that's a very, very good tool that you should look into when it's released here. They say June, but you know how software companies are. It could be much, much later. I absolutely love Google Translate, and you should all be using it. When I was in college, I did an exchange in Quebec, and my French was bad. Well, I knew all the bad words, right? I could cut somebody out in French. You always learn those first, right? I mean, let's just be honest. But I really learned French from watching news, captioned news, right? Because news, they say all the words, right? And particularly the weather. The weather report helped me learn French probably more than any French teacher I had. Because they're going to use all the words, they're going to use descriptions, they're going to say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, And say a front is rolling in, a front is moving out. So whenever somebody asks me about captions, I say they're really, really great for second language learners, right? Not just for deaf people. And now, have y'all watched TV lately? These sounds, you can't hear anything. I've got to watch it with the captions on. I'm turning into an old man, but Google Translate is great. It allows you, this uses AI to look at language. Again, we're talking about large language models. They associate one word with other terms. So anything that deals with language, AI is very, very good at, for the most part. Now, again, I've tried this alttext.ai, and I'm not sure how to feel about this. Because in one sense, it does describe things, but it doesn't give you context, right? This is Old Town Montreal, and it'll say something like, oh, that has cobbled streets and a dome in the back. And again, it's going to depend on the context of why that image is there. Am I talking about cobbled streets? Is this a urban planning class? Then I'd focus on that, and who cares about what's in the background? Or is it an architecture class where I want to talk about that dome, I want to talk about those street lights, why are those trees there among those houses, essentially? So again, I would use this to get you maybe started on image descriptions and how you do that. I'm one who recommends that if you're going to use an image in something, right, you should describe that image for everybody. I think that's just better pedagogy. Right, here's why this image is here. This is the context of that image. Even your sighted students can read the description and look and, oh, it'll help them make that connection, just pedagogy-wise. So that's maybe one you should try for a free trial, see how you like it. I'm torn about it. Well, not really. It does a good job of describing what's there. It does not do a good job of context because machines don't do nuance and context. They just can't do that. I, however, absolutely love this. Seeing AI is probably one of the best applications I've ever seen of AI. You can use it on your phone. Blind people use it all the time. I used it. I was in Norway and used it, and it was great. I mean, I don't speak Norwegian, right? Sorry. They didn't have that class, when I went to college. But it would explain everything that was there, right? So that's the pastry shop, which is, what I needed to know, right? That word means pastry. I was like, oh, okay. So I could go in there and get donuts, essentially. I didn't call them donuts, but that's what they were. But it's a free iPhone app. I think it's also on the Google Play Store. Is it? Yeah. And so we've confirmed it. So it'll describe your physical environment a little bit, and directionally it's pretty good. It's probably one of the best applications I've seen of AI. Yeah, I hacked it to do that. I don't know if that automatically does that or not. Does it? Have you used it in a foreign country?
Great tool to use in my class.
I've never used it in a foreign country, but I think a lot of applications, like they'll say, use system default language, but then if you could get in the settings, you can often change it to a different language.
Yeah, I changed it for Norwegian, but that I'm not sure about. But yeah, there's a way to do that. Now, believe it or not, Office 365 has a lot of good AI features built right in that you maybe have used, maybe have not used, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. I absolutely love Immersive Reader. I love it. I use that pretty much every couple of days. I use it just to record stuff and just to kind of experiment and mess around with stuff. So tools I use every day, I use JAWS and NVDA almost every day. Well, yeah, I do use them every day. I mean, I can't think of trying to think of the last time I went through a day without using JAWS or NVDA, and I don't know, I'm sure there was some time during work I didn't, but I like Immersive Reader because it just has a simple and clean interface, and it highlights the word. It's really, really good for dyslexic students, for students who are maybe not reading on the grade level or the level they should be reading. If they're college students, it does a really, really good job. It's very easy to use. It's built right into 365. So I'll show you how to get it. You just go to View. If you're in Word, 365 now, so you're in 365. Go to View, and then you just click Immersive Reader, and it's going to change your screen to look like this. It'll read as it highlights the words. It will read them. I do it. The reason I use it is I sometimes use it. We do a lot of math accessibility work, and one of the biggest problems with turns out that creating accessible math is not actually that difficult. It's actually fairly simple. The words simple and easy have two different meanings, right? Those are two entirely different words, two different meanings. The language of math is really, really the holdup, right? Because if I say solve for the square root of 4 plus 5, am I asking you to solve the square root of 4 in root plus 5, which is 2 plus 5, which equals 7? Or am I asking you to solve the square root of 4 plus 5, which is 9? Square root of 9 is 3. So, which one is it? Right? It's two entirely different answers. So I use it for that because a lot of what I'm doing with math is language, right? Does this sound right? So I'll read it, I'll hear it out loud and go, well, that just sounds bizarre. That's not what I wrote necessarily. That's not what I thought that I typed, but I did. So you can use it for proofing. You can use it for people with, again, with reading differences, with dyslexia, or maybe they're reading on a different level than maybe they should be based on the material. So I really like Immersive Reader. Did you know that you can set languages in Word and you can get a screen reader to read in that language, right? You can get it to read Canadian French and it'll pronounce it the way it should. And maybe I'll get a chance to show you that maybe a little bit later, but that works in Office 365. And that's a great thing for you. Anybody who teaches ESL or does anything with ESL, you're talking about pronunciation, use Office 365 for the language translation. It does a really good job with that, and it'll read it out in the language, pronounced perfectly. Now here's how I use it. This is my, I'll have to probably click this. All right, so this is the way I use the AI in Word in 365, and I think this is probably the best application of it. Okay, so let me correct something. I was looking for the wrong word. I said, you may have to clean up a little bit. That was not the word I was searching for at that time, but I didn't go back and edit the video. Depending on who you are. Now, Cheryl, if you've ever talked to her at Haywood, she's got a nice, clear voice. She enunciates. It got almost all her stuff right. It's going to depend on your accent, how you sound, the microphone you're using. So you're definitely going to have to clean up some punctuation, particularly commas, periods, that kind of stuff. You're going to have to clean that up a little bit. But when I first started in accessibility many, many years ago, captioning took like forever. You had to do it line by line. With AI now, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot smoother, it's a lot easier. I got that transcript with Cheryl, even with, my thick accent, I got it cleaned up in like 15 minutes. I mean, it did not take long. And that's built right into 365. So anytime you record and let's say, Kevin's doing this video, if for some reason he wanted to caption the video, I mean, we got the captions going now, but if he wanted to caption the video, he could just take that audio file, feed it into Word, and it would caption automatically for him. And then he'll just have to put it in his whatever editor he happens to be using. So those are the ways that I use AI when it comes to accessibility. I do not use it with math at all in any way, shape, or form, because it does not understand just the language of math. And some of us humans don't either, so that's just one of those things we're working on. No, I mean, you're going to have to, it'll put it in Word, and then you can, do UTF-8 or whatever. You can save it as that, but it's going to do it inside Word. But it's really only it's a really simple process to get it into another form. And I use something called Pandoc. It's pandoc.org. So it lets you take any file type and convert it into any other file type. There's a slight learning curve, but not a big one because it's command line. But I really like Pandoc because it lets you just turn anything into anything else. So you could take, a website, turn it into a Word document. So that might be one you want to think about using. Now, this is one I really want you to think about, okay? I hate to get philosophical with you here, but I really love this quote, and I'm going to read it to you. And this is by Emily Bender. Emily Bender, Google her. She's one of the top AI people walking the earth. But anyway, here's a quote from her. If we ask, can AI do that? We're asking the wrong question. A better question is this an appropriate use of automation? Should we use automation to teach humans? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking questions. I'm not giving you answers. I'm asking questions. Should we use automation to hire software engineers at Amazon? Probably not, right? We've established that it's probably something we shouldn't use automation to do. And maybe a human has to do that. Now, should we use it for transcription? Yeah, we should use it for transcription. Should we use it to translate languages? Probably, yeah. That's a great use of automation. But one of my goals is to get you to think about these tools and what's an effective use of that tool, right? How do I effectively use this tool to accomplish a goal? And is AI appropriate for certain things? Right? Should we use that to evaluate employees? Should we use AI for healthcare? Looks like we're on the road to doing that, but should we? Just because we can do something, should we, right? I was a bouncer in college, right? I could beat up that annoying guy, but should I? Or should I just get him out of the bar? What's an appropriate use, I didn't go around beating people up, right? Sometimes you want to beat people up, but you can't do that, right? You've got to think about, is this tool appropriate in this situation? And I think that's what Dr. Bender is talking about is, okay, yeah, there are certain times where automation is a great thing and you should use it. And there's some times when it's maybe not so great. And we saw the example with Amazon, and I really encourage you to go back and read that article. They'll walk you through step by step. And it's done in pretty much, I mean, you don't have to be a tech nerd to understand how Amazon's AI actually taught itself to discriminate better against women, right? It got better and better at it. It got to the point where it saw a women's college and immediately threw that resume out. It didn't even have to look at the name, even if it was a college that was traditionally female and that became co-ed, it would even throw those out.
Yeah, don't play field hockey.
Yeah, yeah.
For inclusion, right? These are really hard discussions.
Yeah, and a college called me about a blind student that was going to take Math 171 online. And I said, I recommended tactiles. They're like, how are we going to get the tactiles? What are we going to do? I was like, the mail still works, right? I have a library of tactiles. We'll put it in a box and we'll send it to the address. And it's labeled. So I say that to say a lot of times people will call me about a blind student taking this or that. What should I do? I'm like, I don't know. That depends on the person, right? When did this person lose their sight? Do they have a screen reader that they like? Do they have an iPhone? Well, they got VoiceOver. They're probably used to that screen. Let them use VoiceOver. Let them use whatever they want to. So those are tricky conversations, but we have to think about, what does this person need? I think sometimes we get caught up in, well, I got to do this, this, and this for the law, when really we should be focused on that person. What does that person need? Right? What are we trying to do for this purpose? What is our goal? What can we give this person? And that's when we get sort of, we confuse people with statistics, or they're a disability, not a person. And yeah, those are tough conversations. And I was, talking to Sarah today and saying part of my job is salesmanship. I have to sell this to people. And what I'm trying to get them to do is think about how their class is structured for everybody. All right? Captions help those language learners. I had a student come up to me and said, "Thank you for captioning those videos that I produced for my class." I said, "Well, yeah, it's no problem." I said, "But why do you care? You don't, you're not, registered as having a disability." She said, "Well, I have a small baby and I study at night." And then I got to tell this story real quick. When I first got into accessibility, there was somebody who was suing all of the big cities in America for wheelchair ramps and curb cuts. And whoever it was didn't want their identity known, but they seemed to have almost unlimited pockets. And it turns out it was Federal Express, which makes sense if you think about it, right? The Americans with Disabilities Act, Federal Express as a company didn't exist when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. And yet those are critical for them, right? I mean, and they would sue you like everybody. Like every street's got to have a curb cut or a wheelchair ramp, particularly the big cities. And then they just started just throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars because it was worth it for them. But those curb cuts and those ramps were not designed for Federal Express. They didn't even exist when those rules came into place, but it ended up benefiting them. So I try to get people to think of that, and sometimes I use the law as my nuclear weapon. I'm like, well, you just got to do this, right? You won't have any choice. But I try to use that as my, it goes back to my bouncer days. You negotiate first, right? Violence was a last resort, right? Now that was a tool in your toolkit, right? I'm going to use this if I have to. But other than that, we're going to negotiate and we're going to talk this through. And I always tell people, accessibility is like being a bouncer, trying to convince people to do stuff. You say, "Come on, man," a lot. You say, "You shouldn't be doing that." And then, you get to the violent part when you have to. But other than that, you do not, right? It's like being a mobster. You don't break their legs first. You don't lead with that. You lead with, "Give me that, let's work something out here," right? You're going to pay me with interest every month. As long as you make that payment, I'm leaving you alone. Now, I've got a bat in the trunk of my car, and I will use it. But that is not my first choice. So I would recommend that when you come to those difficult decisions that Sarah was talking about, first you're talking about a person, a human being, right? That's what you're talking about first of all. You're not talking about a disability. That's a person that just happens to have a disability, right? I happen to have a size 15 shoe, right? They didn't control that. So you got to do something to help that person. And then what are your goals? What are you trying to get accomplished? And then what's the best tool for that? And then what tool do they use or like to use? Right? You have to talk to them. And when it comes, you're going to have three types of people in accessibility. People who just don't know anything about it and are willing to learn. Right? You're going to have that enthusiastic person, and then you're going to have that person who's just going to be resistant. Right? It's, again, same thing as being a bouncer in a bar. You have the guy that's just there. It's always guys too. It's never women. Women were never the problem. If two women did fight, you called 911 because y'all are vicious. Y'all are a lot tougher and meaner than men. But you have that guy, he wants to just come there and have a good time. That's all. You have that one guy who's just a follower is going to do what the other group does. And then you have people they're just bad actors. They're just going to do bad stuff. And, you deal with those three groups differently. The people who don't want to do accessibility stuff, that's when you break out the law. You got to do this. This is going to happen. Right? The people that just don't know, you just work with them. Of course they can't do it. They've never done it before. Right? First time I did yoga, I couldn't do downward dog, right? You got to practice that. I'd never done it before. So that's one thing I would recommend. But think about those appropriate uses of automation, why you want to do it. Is this the best tool? Now, here is your resources. I'd encourage you to read all of these articles. They'll give you a great perspective on the pros and cons of AI. We talked about using it for accessibility. And I particularly recommend this one. Well, I recommend all of them, but don't tell anything to a chat bot you want to keep private. Y'all do realize that we've given up privacy willingly, right? You know that conspiracy theory, people are like, they're going to inject a microchip in you. I'm like, why? You carry a locator with you in your pocket everywhere. You pay a monthly fee to do it. Nobody's got to inject you with anything. But it talks about that loss of privacy. And all I have to say I was going to use an example, I use that example of AI bias. I was going to use this one with the eating disorders helpline. It's too bleak. I had to cut that one out. I'll let you read that one yourself. I had to cut that one out. I'm like, that was just too much. And then you'll find out how OpenAI used those Kenyan workers, those Indian workers, to make GPT less toxic. And again, we're talking about calculators for words. You associate this term with these words, and that's all it does, and then it just spits it back out to you. Okay? It's not magic. You saw the AI toothbrush, which is just, come on. We know that's not a real thing, don't we? Don't we know an AI toothbrush is not a real thing? I hope so. I mean, okay, all right, great. Yeah. Because it's just marketing. Everybody wants to hear it. They hear AI and they have all these pictures in their heads. This is a good one. It'll explain what artificial intelligence is and what it does. Why artificial intelligence itself is a misnomer, right? It doesn't learn in the traditional sense, right? It's just an algorithm using math. If Kevin types in tacos, here are the words I'm going to associate with that word, that term, tacos. Right? That's it. Yeah. Okay. So tell you that. And then AI is a lot of work. It talks about what it takes as far as water, electricity, what it takes to use these tools. And again, I do want to leave you with, these are tools, okay? They're effective tools, right? But there's a cost to using any tool. It's just a technology tool. There are benefits to using AI, and there are some drawbacks. And again, you have to, in our lives, we have to weigh certain things. I was talking about the parking in downtown Hendersonville, excuse me, that's $2 an hour. I saw that. I took a picture of it, and I was sending it to all my friends. I'm like, it only costs $2 to park here for an hour. You can walk around downtown. I wish I had my phone with me. I left it in the car, and then the response I was getting back was like, $2, you can park there all day for like $10? I was like, yeah. And I mean, we were just amazed. But I'm using that story as an illustration. That's a metaphor for their benefits and drawbacks, right? Like, I didn't see a Peruvian place downtown that we've got. I've got down the street from me. But it's $2 to park there. I can breathe the air. All right? I don't get in traffic jams. I live 13 miles from my front door to my office is exactly 13 miles. Sometimes it takes me an hour to get there, depending on when I leave. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes.
But you don't get a Peruvian restaurant.
That's right. So it's that trade-off. I think y'all got the better end of the stick, kind of, with $2 an hour for parking, and you got Moe's barbecue. So I mean, those are benefits and trade-offs, right? We realize that certain places have this, certain places have that. Which one? It's not that one's better than the other, or it's all good or it's all bad. It's just there's trade-offs. So with AI, again, I can use those transcription services. Anytime I do a podcast now, I automatically have a transcript because the AI does it for me, and I don't have to worry about that. Those are just benefits and trade-offs. Again, probably should not be using AI to diagnose somebody's health condition. That's going to be a little bit more troubling than transcription. The major benefit is language. It does language really, really well. And we should just stay cautious about the use and misuse of AI.